Hi there, Malcolm here with my 224th Booktube video, and today I'll be bringing you a quick wrap up of my readings for the first 2 months of the year. And now I've got complete like-for-like figures on Storygraph, I can directly compare against the same time as last year as well. So January 2025, I managed 13 titles, 3,155 pages, and 30.68 hours. Compared to 2024, which was 9 books, 2,546 pages, and 27.87 hours, so up on all accounts at the start of the year. So that's a really good start. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video, I'm going to try and do more individual book review videos rather than just do a wrap up of everything. My individual videos do seem to do slightly better than my wrap ups, so hopefully the wrap up video will be slightly shorter, although due to time constraints, I've got 2 months worth to get through. So, with lots to do, let's get cracking. So first up, it was Marvel Select The Legend of Shang-Chi, which is a reprint of Heroes for Hire, Spider Island, Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, and The Legend of Shang-Chi itself, where basically he teamed up with various other heroes to go and do a thing. As it had multiple sources, the art style changes throughout each story, but none of the stories were particularly interesting. I'd say this is worth reading. I was just hoping more from it, really. And certainly from all my knowledge of Shang-Chi being the Legend of the Ten Rings, that's what I know about him, this didn't really build on any of that, so it was alright, worth reading. After that, I then read Firefly Coup de Grace by Una McCormack. I have done a video on this one, so I'll leave a link to that below, so you can go check that out to see what I thought of this one. After that, I then read Marvel Select Spider-Man Freshman Year, and it's pretty much a retread of Spider-Man's origin story, told over 5 chapters, and each chapter he faces off against one of the major Spider-Man foes. Although it does sort of allude that he's come across such a foe in a previous adventure not mentioned in the book. This was a lot of fun. Really nice artwork, beautifully coloured, kind of everything you want in a Spider-Man graphic novel. And if you're new to Spider-Man, or if you've not read much in the way of Spider-Man, this is a brilliant starting point. Booktastic. After that, I then read Buffy the Vampire Slayer Sins of the Father by Christopher Golden. I have done an individual video of that, so I'll leave a link to that one below, so go check that one out. Yes, there's going to be a lot of that sort of thing now in this new setup. After that, I then read Spider-Man / Deadpool Itsy Bitsy, and this was just so much fun. Deadpool's doing a lot of fun anyway, with his quick quips and everything, but Spider-Man, you know, full of his quips as well. So you got these two basically both trying to out-motor mouth the other one. In the meantime, this Itsy Bitsy creature is wreaking havoc, and they've got to try and stop her. Chaos on every page, lovely artwork that really bounces off the page, and more one-liners and quips that you can shake a stick at. Better suited to more established fans of Deadpool and Spider-Man, but this was so much fun, booktastic, highly recommend this one. After that, I then read Halo Silent Storm by Troy Denning, and I have done an individual video for this one, so I'll leave a link to that below if you want to know what I thought of this. Go check it out, please. And then after that, I then read The Amazing Spider-Man Learning to Crawl. By this point, I was getting a bit Spider-Man saturated. Marvel Select have gone through a series of just producing one Spider-Man graphic novel after the next. It's like, well, let's have somebody else. There are other heroes out there. So I came in this one with a bit of about it. But no, this was absolutely brilliant. Another sort of burgeoning Spider-Man story as he's just starting out, finding his feet, finding his responsibilities. And in this case, he's inspired another young man to become his own superhero, the Clash. Sounds like a venereal disease, who doesn't actually do any heroing at all. And this is my slight gripe about this one, because the antagonism and the chaos caused by these two, basically Spider-Man going up to Clash and punching him in the face for just being there. It's like, he's not really doing anything. Okay, he's annoying everybody, but that doesn't really warrant getting punched in the face. The artwork is also a little bit grainy, not quite so clear, just slightly different style. But it's a much geekier, dorkier looking Peter Parker. But it does investigate his relationship with Aunt May a lot more, and her opinion of this Spider-Man menace. So, worth buying. Not as good as the previous 2 Spider-Man books, but an interesting take nonetheless. After that, I then read Predator Stalking Shadows by James A. Moore and Mark Morris. I have done a video for this one, go check that out. And after that, I then read, or I should say finished reading, Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky to my wife. This is book 1 of the final Architecture trilogy. I've done an individual video on that, go check it out. After that, I then read The Thing, movie novelisation by Alan Dean Foster. Again, there's a video, link below, go check it out, please. And after that, I then read The Simpsons Comics Meltdown. I've been going through these, but then got sidetracked with the various Marvel Selects that I hadn't got around to reading and some other things. Finally got through of those, so I'm back to my main Simpsons read through. Again, this was a great collection of fun Simpsons adventures, although they've stopped adding the bonus content, such as, you know, top 50 things that Bart hates or whatever. None of that's in here anymore. Worth buying if you like that sort of thing, which I do, so it was. And after that, I then read The Revelation Code by Andy McDermott. This is book 11 of the Wild Chase series, where Nina Wilde is now pregnant, and so she has that little concern to think about while she's diving through windows and being involved in car chases and leaping out of zeppelins and all the rest of it. And a slight change of form, Eddie Chase is the one that's kidnapped, and Nina has to find a thing for a bad guy so he can do some bad thing. And of course, Eddie and Nina need to escape from their captors and stop the bad guy doing his thing by going and find the MacGuffin first, only to have it taken off them by the bad guy, and then there's a final confrontation. Yeah, as I said, a formula for this sort of story, but wow, what a lot of fun. Now, nearly 490 pages. I flew through this one really quickly. Really enjoyable characters and absolutely unbelievable stunts and ridiculousness, which makes it all the more fun. Yeah, booktastic. Now, the series is going from strength to strength so far. And then finally, in the month of January, I finished listening to Judas Unchained by Peter F. Hamilton. This is book 2 of the Commonwealth Saga, and it was read to me by John Lee. In book 1, the humans unintentionally release a extremely hostile alien species from being imprisoned on their own planet, and now they've got to reap the consequences of that and try and stop them. That's more or less the story. Can't give away much more than that without giving away spoilers. But yeah, I thought this was a really engaging story, really likeable characters, lots of different threads doing their own thing. My big complaint about book 1 was the story of Ozzy and Oscar as they're off doing some walkabout through the planets by some means to do a thing, and it didn't seem to have any relevance to anything. That's quite quickly wrapped up in this book, and then they get to join the main adventure. I'm still not entirely sure that the whole adventure was worth it or relevant. It was quite a nice change of pace to the chaos that was going on elsewhere, but it was, why do I care about what's going on here? What's this got to do with anything? And it turned out it didn't really. There were some answers, but nothing of any practical use. So the story could have been quite a lot shorter than its 40 hours per book runtime if we cut out that bit of nonsense spread throughout. I mean, I enjoyed it, it just didn't seem to be relevant. Could just take that whole segment out and not change anything. But yeah, booktastic. Really enjoyed it. I think I prefer the Night Dawn trilogy a little bit more than I did the Commonwealth Saga, but I'm very eager to get on with the rest of the series when I get around to it. Okay, that was January. I shall take off these, try and differentiate between that and the second month of the year, which I still can't pronounce. So, again, compare like for like. I want to do a running total as well. I've only done it month by month. So for 2025, I managed to complete 7 titles at 1,930 pages and 19.83 hours. This is down from the previous second month of the year, where I managed 17 titles. I had to check that twice, got 17, really, in that short month? I mean, I know it was a leap year, but come on. 3,859 pages and 27.85 hours. So a big drop from last year. Now, I will say, you can probably hear my voice, I have suffered from a horrific cold cough thing that's lasted about 6 weeks. And so I've been a bit run down for the lot of the month, which might be part of it. But 7 titles is still pretty good. Let's get cracking through them. So first up was my book of the month, A Saturation Point by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I got this from the library because obviously I don't have anything else to read. I have done a video for this already, so I'll leave a link to that below. Go check that one out. And then I moved on to Simpsons Comics Confidential. More of the same, really. No bonus material again, but yeah, worth buying. And then I read The Bone Labyrinth by James Rowlands. This is book 11 of Sigma Force. And at 670 pages, this did dominate a lot of the month, which is possibly also why I didn't get as many titles completed. And in this one, our man on the ground, Kowalski, gets kidnapped along with a geneticist and her gorilla that communicates by sign language because they want what's in this gorilla's brain. It's all to do with the sort of origin of human intelligence or something like that. And so it's left to Gray Pierce and Seishan to team up with the geneticist's twin sister, also in that sort of line of work, as they try and find the answers and mount a rescue before it's too late. Now, is that booktastic? Because I did really enjoy it at the time, but I am struggling to remember much more about the plot than that. Full of thrills and spills, lots of fun action sequences and some somewhat plausible science sometimes. Another series that has gone from strength to strength. Highly recommend the Sigma Force series if you haven't read it. Great stuff. The only thing I would say though is the gorilla that communicates by sign language is very reminiscent of the gorilla in Michael Crichton's Congo. I know there are instances of primates having learnt some sign language, but I couldn't help but have a callback to that book. And terrible film, if you've ever seen it. And after that, I then read Armageddon, book 11 of the Left Behind series by Tim LaHaye and J.B. Jenkins, where the last survivors of the Retribution Force start dropping like flies as, Armageddon is kicking off. Hell is literally breaking out on Earth, and those who haven't chosen to take the mark are basically staring death in the face. And as I previously mentioned, the first couple of books do a reasonable setup of the story, and then there's a whole load of nothing until about book 9, 10, where actually stuff starts really kicking off. Now, for a 12-book series with 3 prequels and 1 sequel, I can't help the feeling that this series could really have been streamlined by quite a substantial margin. But as a reread, I quite enjoyed it. Worth reading, even worth buying if you like that sort of thing. And then I read or finished listening to Galactic North by Alistair Reynolds, read to me by John Lee. And again, I've done a video on this, so linky, go check you outie. What? Why are you talking like that, idiot? And then I read Simpsons Game On. This is the last of the Simpsons comics that I have, or the ones titled such way. I've got some Bart Simpson ones as well, which I might move on to. And again, worth buying if you like The Simpsons. And then after that, I finished reading Want by Gillian Anderson to My Wife. This is a series of collated sexual fantasies submitted by anonymous women across the globe, where all the information that we do get is their ethnicity, their religion, their faith, their annual income, their orientation, their living arrangements, and whether they have any children or not. And these accounts can be from a couple of lines, I think one's literally like 4 words, to 3 or 4 pages of quite detailed and explicit desired encounters. So not for the faint of heart, not for the squeamish, not for those who are embarrassed by the word sex, or any of the attributed words, slang terms, scientific terms for parts, actions and fluids. It's all very nitty gritty. Now, having read this to my wife, we might well do a video on this one. So when that happens, I'll leave a link to that below. And I have thought about doing an individual myself. What I can really say about this is it's ungradable, because I can't say, oh, this was rubbish, because these are women's opinions and feelings and desires and all the rest of it, and who am I to judge those? Or it's really good, which, well, how would I know? But as it's a collection of women's deepest, darkest secrets, desires, fantasies, to grade it on any 5-star system just seems crass and degrading. So this one shall remain ungraded. And for women, I think this can be a book to just remind you you're not alone. You're not the only one to have these feelings, these urges, these desires, no matter how wrong they feel, or how right they feel, or about whoever, or whatever, or whenever. And for men with female partners, this book might be instructive, possibly. As a married man of 20 years and 2 kids, there was nothing really in here that was surprising. There's some things I found distasteful, but that's my own personal tastes. Now, there's certainly things I wasn't entirely comfortable reading out aloud, but I did it. And the accounts are grouped into loose sections: rough and ready, to be worshipped, off limits, the captive, kink, strangers, power and submission, exploration, more, the watchers and the watched. I always have a thing for, and gently. I think it was the captive was particularly triggering for my wife. And I think for those who have suffered abuse or are triggered by abuse, that might be a section to miss. It's not a particularly big section, it is a smaller section in the book. But my main takeaway really was people are bloody weird and don't always know what it is they actually want. And please, for the love of everything that is sane, do not give us a man's version of this. We don't want to read that. No. Well, there we go. Pretty successful 2 months, I think. Bring on March. So feel free to comment on any of those books. But as usual, if you have nothing nice to say, then please keep it to yourself. Thank you. Like, subscribe, and other YouTubey things if you want. And until next time, see you later.